I am going to tell you what you need to know to get where you want to go in 45 minutes. So brace yourself. First of all, mostly what I'm going to do is tell you things that I've learned in the year since the God patent came out. All right? And I provide a slightly different perspective, partly because I am a physicist. Physicists are trained to go straight for the inarguable bottom line, the foundation of how things work. Okay? So I've learned a few tricks, and I'm going to share them with you. This is an unveiling. And the first thing I want to point out is that you've received 3 handouts.
Gotcha.
All right, so I want you to look at each of these. First, the bookmark. It's a bookmark. I have a book for sale. You're damn right you got a bookmark. So bookmarks are good because everyone likes bookmarks. They have intrinsic value, and bookmarks are great for that. The second thing is if you look at the handout that says the Writer's Toolbox. Okay, the trick with handouts is that when you want to promote whatever you're doing to promote your book, is to make sure that your handouts have value for the people that you give them to. So what you'll see here is that there are bulleted points, very brief bulleted points on the craft of writing. Now I'm a craft junkie. I can't get enough of studying the craft, and we'll tell you why in a minute, and we'll do a little bit. But also notice that interspersed among these bullet points on the craft are advertisements for stuff that I'm doing. So the first thing I learned is if I give a handout and all it's got is self-promotional stuff on it, people don't take it away. They leave it. Of course they leave it. It has no value to them. So when you create a handout, make sure it's got value to the people who are going to take it away. And you'll see that it's got actually quite a bit of value on here to all of us, especially me. Because it does have, you know, the YouTube, the Facebook, the Twitter, the exhaustingness of what we have to do to build a platform. The next one, though, the next handout is the evaluation form. All right? The evaluation form is something that I stumbled into, and I will send you the, if you send me an email and ask for it, I'll send you the Word file for the evaluation form. And now the reason this is so valuable is, well, threefold. First, you need feedback when you give a presentation. But second, it provides a way for people to give you their contact information, which is astoundingly important. You might have heard something about the value of networking in the last 3 days. Anyone hear anything about that? No? Right. So this is a great way to do it. And we are going to network within this room in a minute. Okay? In a very efficient way, I think you'll see. The third thing on the evaluation form is you will see on there, there's a spot where it asks for what you liked most about the presentation, and it asks for your initials. This way, I can get blurbs for my presentations. And then when I go to a group that needs a presenter, I can say so-and-so said this about it, so-and-so said that about it. So it's built in there. The third thing is referrals. There's a point on there, and this one I totally stumbled on. I made up this form, and the original draft of this form, well, I didn't have enough stuff. I ran out of questions to ask. So at the very bottom, I just put, if you know anybody else who might want to hear a presentation like this, could you tell me who? And that became the single most valuable thing, because one presentation leads to another. So this evaluation form turned out to be just gargantuan for me, and I'm more than happy to send it to you if you want. Now, my email address is on almost everything I gave you. It's on the handout and the bookmark, okay? So what I want to do next is, anybody here promoting a book now? Planning on promoting a book in the future? Anybody here want 30 or 40 prospective customers for this book? Okay, this is what I want you to do. This is what I want you to do. It might get a little wet, but I want you to put your business cards in this glass as it comes around, okay? If you want me to give you, if you want to be among the people who share emails, I will create a list. Well, there's no fun in this. It's dry glass. So let me rephrase that. I will create an email list of everyone who gives me their business card, all right? If you want me to share your email with everyone else's, write an S on it, on your business card. If you don't, if you just want to give it to me, then don't write an S. Last year, everyone put an S. If you don't want to share your email address, that's fine. Don't expect to sell many books, because the first thing you have to do to sell books is to bare your neck to the masses so that they can have a free shot. And that's what it feels like. Okay? So here is the business card glass. And it's dry, yes, the dry, boring. I'd love to have a little, a few drops of scotch in there, give a little bit of environmental oomph to the business cards. So another thing, since this presentation will be going on YouTube, and it will also be distributed as a CD through the conference, anybody in YouTube land or who listens to it on CD can send me their email address, ransom@ransomstevens.com. That's Stevens with a PH, and ransom as in note. And I'll distribute those emails too. So right now you already have a big old chunk of your distribution list, okay? If you want to play. So one thing I found very useful in collecting contact information from people who come to my events is to be very free about giving my own, all right? And so far, I received very little spam from anyone that I've given my card to. It's not spam if I'm interested in it or even potentially interested in it. So most people don't abuse their lists more than once a month. Some people will hit those things almost daily, but you know who they are, right? So you can knock those right out of there if you're not interested. One thing I never do to another writer, though, is unsubscribe, because this is hard enough. When I blast my list, I literally sweat before I hit that send button. It's hard to bare your neck, and that's what we do, all right? Now, anyone have any questions? We're not going to have a question and answer session because I want you to interrupt me. There's not so many of us that we will decay into unmitigated chaos. But it would be pretty cool if we did. I've never seen unmitigated chaos. So all right, the next very important thing that you need as a writer is the ability to write, and to write well. Now, there is this thing called talent. I don't necessarily believe that writing comes from talent. I don't really care, because I can't do anything about whatever talent I have, right? It's a totally useless concept to me. If I believe I have a great deal of talent, then maybe I wouldn't study the craft and I wouldn't get better. If I believe I have no talent, then what am I doing here, right? It's pointless. Talent is useless. There are no 5-year-olds writing the great novel. There are 5-year-olds who have mastered mathematics. There are 5-year-olds who can play Mozart, but there ain't one who's writing a good novel, all right? It's a very different type of art, and that's why we study the craft. So, that brings me to just a very quick tutorial on one type of craft. So on your handout, there are these bulleted points. Okay, and the second advertisement mentions the San Francisco Writers University, sfwritersu.org. I have 4 parts of an 8-part set there on the craft, and we're going to touch on one of them right now. The reason we're going to do this, we're going to talk about description. And the reason is that I have just given you all my email address, so when your books come out, I'm going to get email from you, and I'm going to want to buy your book. And there's one thing that annoys me more than anything else when I read a book, and that is bad description, okay? Now, it is a very subjective business, and so when I say bad, I of course mean my opinion of what is good and bad. There are no absolutes in this. This is not thermodynamics, okay? I'm not going to bother you about violating conservation of metaphor or something, right? This isn't conservation of energy. This is not a momentum problem. It's art. So everything I say is wrong, but it's all got some germ to it, some germ of accepted truth. So, what I want to talk about is description. So first of all, I want to point out that when you describe something, be it a scene, an object, or a person, it's very important that you describe this from a point of view. Okay, whether you're writing in the third person or the first person, or even in the second person, everything you write is written from a point of view. If you decide you're going to write, you need to describe something, okay? If all you're doing is describing it, if it doesn't have a component to the plot, if it doesn't add to your building of a character, that description has no point. We always have to get as much as we can out of every sentence. So description is a really good example of this. So description has to play a role in point of view. So you don't merely define a place or a thing when you're writing. You want to show your reader the world as your characters see it. So you want to build things in. And I'll give you a couple of examples in a second. The attitude of the point of view character, the mood, has got to come through too. And that's the way that you can build in plot points. All right, so let me give you an example from the God Patent, a very short one here on page 8. Now the God Patent, we're going to talk about pitches in a second. The pitch for the God Patent is this. This is the story of a laid-off engineer trying to rebuild his life who gets caught between science and religion in a battle over the origin of the universe and the existence of the soul. I somehow managed to say that with a hint of enthusiasm, I hope, because it's about the millionth time I've said it. But that's what it's about, and in this one paragraph, he is trying to decide whether or not he wants to rent an apartment in this Victorian house turned apartment complex. It's actually much more complicated than that since he has no money. But I want you to pay attention to the description of this place, and in particular, how it reflects this character's point of view. Another odd thing about this Victorian turned apartment complex, the foyer opened to someone's living room. An antique couch, diamond tucked red velvet with sloping arms and lion feet, was set in the center of the room on a matching Persian rug. Ryan leaned against the wall and stared across the room out a picture window at the rolling hills across the valley. The reverberation of the girl's music reminded him of his sisters at that age, and the smell of the well-oiled hardwood floor was just like his grandma's house. Home had never been exactly comfortable, but it was home, and this wasn't too far off. After about 10 minutes, the bass line of whatever music the girl was playing had faded into the background, and Ryan heard a voice that sounded like an AM disc jockey who'd mixed black coffee, scotch, and cigarettes until his tone could define the word gruff. All right, I use this as an example because he's not all that comfortable in this place, but it's got some comforting attributes, right? So we're sort of falling into his mood about whether or not he thinks he can make it here. And he can. He does feel he's getting some. It's not all that comfortable, but it reminds him of things. He can deal with it. Ryan's a pretty easygoing guy. So the other point is metaphor and simile, right? We've all been told to go and search for the phrase ly space so that we can remove all the adverbs from our manuscripts, right? Adverbs are a sign that we're using a weak verb. Now, when we do description, there's two very powerful tools. That's actually one tool, and the tool is analogy. When we compare something to something else, metaphor and simile. In the last 20 years or so, metaphor and simile have kind of run amok. You will get in some literary fiction a paragraph where there are descriptions of things that kind of fall into the sort of mixed metaphors where if this thing starts snowballing, it could really catch fire. You get this, right, and you see it a lot. One particular egregious violator of this what I would refer to as a rule that you should break is the Time Traveler's Wife. If you open that book to pretty much any paragraph, you're going to have similes going in every direction. I hate those, okay? I just hate them. When you do a simile, if you nail a metaphor, right, or a simile, if you nail it, there's nothing better. But if you miss, if it's way out of theme, then you're going to get the shaking head from your reader, like, oh, mercy, right? So I'm going to read from just a little bit from my next book, which is in its third draft. And this is very thick with description. All right, now there's a reason though. Okay, this will violate what I said a few minutes ago about over-describing, but there's a reason. And I bet you'll be able to see what that reason is pretty quick. Gloria stops, mindless of the heat, smoke, and encroaching fire. She watches him raise the rifle. She sees blue sparks emerge from the gun barrel and the consequent mud splashing at the woman's feet and over the body of a dead man. Gloria can't comprehend what she sees. Flames converge on the woman and child. The woman drops the child and falls over her. Gloria looks at the man. His rifle is now pointed at the girl in the red t-shirt. The woman's hair turns to smoke and she screams. The scream penetrates Gloria's heart and something shifts. She yells to the man, "No, Chopper, stop." Her voice sounds foreign and familiar, like the voice of a loved one she hasn't seen in a long time. And now it is different. Everything is different. It is a feeling akin to waking from a dream, except that the dream continues. The world has changed color, timbre, and flavor. The green of the forest, the red, blue, and orange of the flames, the steam explosions within the wood fuel, the crashing branches and logs as they fall through the canopy to the ground, the dry, acrid smell of smoke and the moist, sulfur scent of sizzling mud, and the immediate, unyielding heat. It's all still there, but no longer as bright nor as loud and bitter. She chooses to look up, and her neck responds to the command. The sodden branch of a tree clustered with leaves as broad as people, not 10 steps ahead, begins to steam. A flame licks away the leaves. It is just as hot as before. In fact, the heat hurts more now than it did seconds ago. Still, it seems farther away, even as it closes in. That's it, she thinks. Everything seems farther away. Farther away, yes, but it's a conceptual distance. The volume has been turned down. Everything is quieter, even the colors and smells. There's room in her mind to think. Yes, that's the difference. She can think now. She can reflect. Where seconds before everything was response, now there is an instant of reflection between her mind and her senses. Her thoughts are now composed of words. Okay, so this is really thick with description, but the character is going through a change. The title of this book is The Sensory Deception. And so this is a key piece because a main character's senses have been overloaded and she's been broken from this spell. So what I am trying to do is to not just show you a burning forest, but to have that deep within a point of view and to work in the plot point that this person is going through a transformation. Okay? Now there's a bunch of similes in here, right? The volume has been turned down. Waking, it's a feeling akin to waking from a dream, except that the dream continues. So the point is that when you do description, if you overload the description, there better be a reason. Because I know what a forest looks like. You don't have to give me every detail. I've seen a fire. You don't have to give me every detail. On the other hand, if you just say this character's walking through a burning forest, that's really not going to do much for me, right? So there's a careful medium. And a good simile will go a long way to getting your readers through that, and you'll own them if you have some good metaphors and analogies. Anyone read Stephen King's book on writing? Everyone's read Stephen King's book on writing. So anyway, there's this point where he's talking about simile. A detective sitting by a dead body, waiting for the coroner as if he were waiting for a turkey sandwich. see, this one's not going to carry anywhere, because I don't know, waiting for a turkey sandwich, I don't get much of a feeling about waiting from that. You know, how hungry am I? Am I waiting for that turkey sandwich, or do I, you know, it's going to show up, it's going to show up. It does nothing, not even to mention the fact that it's a turkey sandwich and you're talking about a murder, right? There's nothing there. There's no link. So lots of literary fiction really does go heavy and thick with simile. So in my opinion, simile is much stronger when it ties into the theme. But that's my opinion. Blow it off. The next thing is the pitch. Anyone here sick to death about hearing about pitches and developing pitches and pitchcraft, which I think is a very clever phrase, pitchcraft. Anyone at all? Who's got a good pitch that they want to share? All right, I have a mediocre pitch for my next book. All right, the thing about the pitch is, first of all, how good your pitch is has absolutely no indication of how good a writer you are or how good your book is. Duh. We all know this. So why do you have to have a good pitch? So that you can get an agent? Well, that's not actually what sells your book. Your book has to sell to readers. That's why you need a good pitch. When your book comes out, people are going to ask you what your book is about. It's a polite question. Some fraction of the time, they're asking in a very similar way to, how are you? And they want to hear, fine, thanks, right? Most people don't really, well, they care how you are, and if there's something really going on, they'll probably want to listen, but for the most part, they don't actually want to know how you are. This is a greeting. And so, what is your book about is also a polite question. So you need to be able to answer it in less than an hour. Because otherwise they're going to walk away and they ain't going to buy your book. So that's why you have to have a good pitch, is because, or a pitch. It doesn't, I don't know if it has to be good or not, but you need to be able to answer that question in a paragraph, in less than 30 seconds. The shorter the better. The pitch is very difficult to write because you know your book. And I'm going to, this pitch, The Sensory Deception, is a thriller with Somali pirates, burning rainforests, Moby Dick, a sexy venture capitalist, and 3 Silicon Valley scientists who have the solutions to the world's environmental problems. And it tells you almost nothing about what I really care about in this book, and that's why pitches are so hard. You sit down to write your pitch, but it's got virtual reality in it. It's all about how the senses are the interface between the mind and reality, and none of that really, I haven't been able to figure out how to work that into the pitch. Which brings us to the synopsis. You're going to have a synopsis. And let me tell you something. Writing a synopsis is horrible, painful. How many of you have written a synopsis for your manuscript? My God, I hated that. I start writing it, and before I know it, I'm rewriting the whole book. And I got a 100,000 word synopsis for a 90,000 word book. This is no good. I honestly believe that the best solution to the synopsis, and maybe the pitch, is not to write it yourself. Have somebody give you their manuscript and give your manuscript to somebody else. Write each other's synopses. You're too close to your work. When I write a synopsis, I want to mention every character, even this one character, Bhupen Nasser Wanji, because he's hilarious. He always speaks in mixed metaphors. Doesn't fit in a synopsis. All right? It's just too hard. But if you read somebody else's book, it's really not that hard.
Question?
Yeah.
How long should a synopsis be?
A synopsis should be 1.5 pages if you can. So there's 2 types of synopses. In a nonfiction book proposal, the basic rule is like 1 line of synopsis per page of the book. There's generally 300 words per page on a standard page, 250 to 300 words per page, so you can divvy it up like that. For a fiction synopsis, the shorter the better. If you can beat it down to 1 page, then do so. 3 pages is too much. Although, most agents I've talked to don't read the synopsis, which kind of winds you up. So that brings us to the query, which includes the synopsis in many cases and the agent. The query is an interesting bit of work. This is where your pitch comes in. Here's how you write a query. Is everybody aware of Publishers Marketplace? Okay, if you're not, write down publishersmarketplace.com. It costs $20 a month. You can get the free version, but what you want are the deals. And if you pay the $20 a month, you will get an email every day of the deals that have been reported to the big publishing houses in New York City. This way, the deals include the very brief pitch, basically, for the books that have sold, the publisher who bought them, and the agents who sold them. This way you can find agents who have recently sold stuff that's like you write, that's similar to what you write. This is very valuable. You want to have the right agent. So the second thing is agentquery.com. Agent Query will give you a little bit of the backstory on different agents. So with the combination of these two tools, you can find out how many deals a given agent has sold, how many books they've sold in a year, 2 years, 3 years. You can find out the titles of those if they report them. Not all agents report them. But if you have an agent in mind and they haven't sold any books in 10 years, you may want to reconsider that. Okay? So this is useful tools. And then the second thing is, though, that you get from that is you get some personal information about this agent. So when you write your query, what you want to do is to personalize it. What I've done is to put something personal in the first paragraph. Right? The first thing you write is, I'm seeking representation for my novel pitch. And then you say something like, I noticed that you have sold similar books in the last month title. Okay? Bang, you've done your homework. All right? Now you have some very short synopsis, some selling point of your book, a paragraph on your book, and a paragraph about you, and then you want to personalize it again by saying something about why you want them as an agent. And saying that, you know, you've sold this book, they've sold that book, and your book is similar is good. You can also say, if you can, that so-and-so has referred you. That's a good thing to put up front. If another author has said, yeah, I love my agent, then ask them who their agent is. Writers can be very cagey about who their agents are, and I don't know why. It's like you're going to come steal my agent. It's not my agent, that's my girlfriend. Yes, David.
Almost always, the agent's name will be listed in the acknowledgments of the actual.
Yes, acknowledgments are a good place to find agent names. So that was the question, or the point, the comment. Yes, that's another place. So that's harder though. Publishers Marketplace is a much easier way to find the books that are sold. So if you bump into an author and you find out who their agent is, all you have to do is ask them if they like their agent. And if they don't know you, they'll always say yes. If they do know you, they'll almost never say, no, that's not true. But then you can say in your letter that, you know, Khaled Hosseini's told me that you were a great agent. Sorry you're dead, but, you know, so I won't want to query her. Okay, that was in pretty poor taste. The other thing I want to say about the query, rejections are good. Okay, there's two reasons that you should embrace rejections to your query letter. And the first one is, while you believe you want an agent, what you don't want is the wrong agent. Okay, having the wrong agent is much worse than having no agent at all. Okay, because all they're going to do is waste your time. There are a couple of great moments in writers' lives. One of them is when you get your agent. The other one is when your book comes out. This is a business of very few pats on the back. Getting an agent is one of them. Within 2 months, you will be complaining about your agent. All right? It's just part of the racket. The other reason the rejections are good is that it's a sign you're alive. You're out there, you're pushing that rock up the hill. You got to take these things as what they are, evidence that you're pushing. Okay? So that brings us to agents. How many people have said at this conference, anyone heard today, why do you want an agent? Heard it an hour ago. So it does come up. So mostly you're going to get at writers' conferences that I gotta have an agent, I gotta have an agent. We get tunnel vision. Do you need an agent? No, you don't need an agent. You want an agent. What you need is an attorney, okay? Because if you get a book contract, you want an attorney to read it. Now, a lot of agents are attorneys, and good agents are familiar enough with contracts that they'll represent you well, so that's a good reason to want one. But anybody can have an attorney. You don't have to send a query letter to an attorney. Agents are a conduit into the industry, into the established industry. Right now, this industry is in a state of flux, and it is not at all clear what the role of agents will be in 1 to 5 years. On the back of your handout, there is a diagram, okay? A diagram right next to my Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all the exhausting things I do to sell my book. And this diagram shows everything that publishers do, all right? Publishing is in a state of massive flux. I think personally that very few of the existing large publishers will survive much longer. And the reason is really rather straightforward. The things that they do well, and they do certain things extremely well, they do for the wrong people, all right? So I pose this. I'm going to name 3 authors, and I want you to mull which one of these authors actually needs a publisher. Which one of these authors could not just put a book on their webpage and sell 1 million copies or even 1,000 copies, all right? Stephen King. Does Stephen King need a publisher? Stephen King don't need a publisher. He doesn't need a publisher. So Mark Morford. Does Mark Morford need a publisher? How many of you know who Mark Morford is? Mark Morford is an extremely edgy columnist here in San Francisco. He's got an email distribution list of 50,000 people around the country who love him. He's the king of the run-on sentence. He is brilliant in his own ways. It's debatable about whether Mark Morford needs a publisher because he's got a following. Now, if he had a publisher, he could get one really easily. He's got a following, right? It'd be easy for him to get a publisher, but what he doesn't like are editors, because he's the king of the run-on sentence. He loves his sentences. We, his readers, love his insane sentences. Mark Morford maybe needs a publisher, maybe doesn't need a publisher. He self-published his book, The Daring Spectacle, and as far as I know, it's doing very nicely for him. It could do better if he had a publisher, but would he make more money if he had a publisher? I don't know. Probably. He's really fun. But he's chosen not to. So he's the kind of fulcrum point of who needs a publisher and who doesn't. Do you need a publisher? Most of you need a publisher. Why? Because publishers are very good at a few things. Now, does a publisher, who of those 3 does a publisher need? The third is you. Okay, so we got Stephen King, Mark Morford, and you. Which one of these 3 does the publisher need?
Stephen King.
Yeah, the publisher needs Stephen King. They don't need you. They need the one who doesn't need them. There's a problem. This is how businesses collapse. All right, so that's what's going to happen. The publishing industry is built on a blockbuster promotion model, and the writers that they actually need are you, the ones who aren't bestsellers yet, and they've got all the stuff necessary to promote them, but when it comes time and they buy your book, they really don't do that much to promote it. They put all their promotion budgets into their Stephen Kings. All right, and this is a system that's just simply unstable, so it has to change. They're very good at marketing, and let me just point something out that's, I think, relevant. In 2000, there was this thing called the Napster crisis, where the music industry was collapsing, and it did collapse. I think music and books are very different things, all right? Music is reusable. When you get a song, you'll probably listen to it if you like it maybe 100 times. How many times are you going to... Every book on your shelf, are you going to read that 100 times? No, you might read it once. If it's good, you'll read it twice. If it's great, you'll read it 3 times. But it's very different than music. Also, people don't steal literature because it's a different demographic. We're older. Readers have always been mostly older. It's not that we're old and it's an aging demographic, it's that it is simply an older demographic. In 2000, Richard Parsons, the CEO of Time Warner and AOL, said, "It's an assault on everything that constitutes cultural expression of our society. And the corporations won't be the only ones hurt. That is, the publishers won't be the only ones hurt. Artists will have no incentive to create. Worst case scenario, the country will end up in a sort of cultural dark age." So, it didn't happen. There's actually more music available now than there ever has been because there's no longer the big gatekeeper, right? All right, so the next thing, we're almost out of time, is the platform. Developing your platform. I'm going to say something sacrilegious. You don't have to blog. Everybody sigh.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna clap, Ted.
You know, I am sick to death of being told I have to blog. I ain't gonna blog, and that's just the way it's gonna be. I'm not gonna blog, and you're gonna like it. Okay? What you have to do, the reason that blogging makes sense is that we're writers, and blogging is writing. Okay? What you have to do to develop your platform and to promote your book is to find what you can do to develop your platform and promote your book. And it's a very personal set of circumstances. You can do it all in a closet with an internet connection. All right? You don't need to step outside anymore to promote your book if you're that shy. People still like people, though. And so if you have a knack for public speaking, that's a very good way to go. I've sold a lot of copies of the God Patent by doing what I'm doing right now, by standing in front of people, making sure that they have my bookmark, and baring my neck. I have a whole bunch of different speeches. Almost only one of them is related, well, 2 of them are related to my book. This one sort of loosely is. The others aren't. But people buy people. So, you know, when I give a speech, they buy my book because they like what I said, or they hate what I said, and they want to trash my book, whatever it is. So you have to find out what it is. You'll see, I recommend you go on Facebook and you like the God Patent. Okay, if you search in Facebook for the God Patent, the fan page will come up. If you like it, then on your Facebook, you'll see all the stuff that I do to promote the God Patent. These will give you some ideas. And there are things like, I do a video every week, Ask Dr. Ransom, where I get questions from people. Most of the questions have to do with things like physics, quantum physics. I'm going to do one on relativity probably next week. Things that are gee-whizzical that fit within what I can do, right? Speaking has worked for me. The point is, you need to find what works for you. The last thing I want to say is this, the last trick, okay, I'm giving you everything I know, is in the back. I put my bio in the back of this book, all right? My bio's in the back, and at the end of it, it says, novels are capsules of thought, and reading one is akin to reading the author's mind. It's an intimate experience that ought to breed familiarity. To that end, it's only fair that you share your thoughts with me. Please drop me a note, ransom@ransomstevens.com. That's Ransom as in note, Stevens with a PH. I'd love to visit your book club, blah, blah, blah. The point is that I get emails from my readers, a lot of them. I don't know what fraction, but a lot of them, and usually the people who send me a note are people who like my book. And so what do? I say thank you, and I ask them to post those reviews on Amazon. So I have a lot of really nice reviews on Amazon because people said this, and I just say, could you just paste that paragraph into a review on Amazon? And that's what'll move your book. That turned out to be a pretty good move. The very last thing, beware of reviews. I'm only 30 seconds over.
I'm 2 minutes over, so.
You're off the National Institute of Standards, man. So anyway, the last thing, your book is going to be reviewed. You're going to get some good reviews. You're going to get some bad reviews. You have to make a choice. Are you going to believe your reviews? If you believe the good reviews, it's kind of hard not to believe the bad reviews. So let the nightmares begin. Thank you very much.
Thank you.